There is a new push to raise taxes on beer and wine in Oregon. We first told you in February a proposed law would have raised taxes on beer and wine nearly 3,000%, with millions of dollars going towards addiction and recovery services. After outrage from the beer and wine industry, that bill died. Our Kristen Severance found out a new one is up for discussion, and this one will raise prices on alcohol too.
We've been on this corner since 2004.
As the owner of the oldest distillery in Portland, Tom Berkalow knows how to pivot, especially now.
Well, 2020 kind of sucked.
New Deal got into the hand sanitizing business, craft cocktails, anything they could to keep going.
Learning how to do online, learning how to do curbside, bringing out products more for consumers.
But Berkalow and other distillery owners worry a proposed tax hike on their industry may be the hardest hurdle yet.
A small distillery that sells out of a tasting room is actually the most heaviest taxed entity in the state of Oregon. So we're kind of like, we've been kicked a lot, and this is just not really thought out. It's almost like they're going after the little guys.
The proposed bill would have raised the tax on beer from $2.60 a barrel to $72.60. The tax on wine from 65 cents on a barrel to $10.65. And the tax on distilled spirits would have been determined by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission every 2 years. Beer and wine sellers would have had to pay that cost up front and charge customers more. The bill, pushed by the group Oregon Recovers, would have meant millions for addiction and recovery services. John Poteet is the owner of Shine Distillery Grill.
So coming after the distilleries, the breweries, the wineries, the cideries, you know, we're small people. If they want to raise money for addiction, why don't they go after the pharmaceuticals and start taxing aspirin? The pharmaceuticals are the ones who produced all the opioids and made billions.
After outrage from the beer and wine industry, the bill died. Now, Oregon Recovers wants the state to create a task force to figure out how to reduce alcohol consumption statewide by 15% by increasing alcohol costs. Mike Marshall is the executive director of Oregon Recovers.
What would the money go towards?
So first of all, the money, don't just look at it as revenue. You have to look at it. The issue here is, how do we use price to reduce harmful consumption, particularly underage drinking and binge drinking? We have two of the highest rates in the country. Underage drinking is a pipeline into addiction rates later in life, as is binge drinking. And binge drinking has gone up through the roof during COVID.
While the breweries and wineries in Oregon pay some of the lowest taxes in the country, Oregon has the second highest tax on spirits in the U.S. at more than 22%. Only Washington is higher at more than 32%. I asked Mike, why even include distilleries in this tax hike?
To not address alcohol across the board, it's a toxic, addictive carcinogen. We need to bring down the consumption of excessive consumption down. It's going to save an awful lot of money. More importantly, it's going to save lives.
I understand where they're coming from. I think most people in my industry support, money for addiction and recovery and all of that. But what I've heard proposed is not well thought out, at least from the distiller's perspective.
Now, the House Behavioral Health Committee will consider creating this task force they're meeting tomorrow in Salem. If approved, the bipartisan group made up of people from the healthcare and alcohol industry would have to decide how to reduce drinking by 15%, that's across the state, by increasing alcohol costs, and they would have to do that by November.